Okay, we are on, so I'm going to just switch up here to this chair. Okay, Riley, it's all yours.
Okay. Just to give you all some background, it's a case study. It's called the Buddha pedestals. And the story talks about Stephen, who is a missionary to Thailand, who's worried about the Buddhist pedestals that the church people have hanging up in their houses. The church people, and even the pastors and elders, believe that they are simply symbols of nationalism. This all started with Stephen visiting Seum's house, who ran a general store and was an elder in the church. Stephen was tasked with holding Bible studies in all the elders' houses and helping them grow in their spiritual lives. After the past missionary left the church. In Seum's house and most of the other village houses, there were pictures of family, royalty, military officers, girls in bathing suits, and then a Buddha. In the minds of the Thai people, there is a close tie between nationalism, the royal family, the military, and Buddha. They believed that this was simply a showing of nationalism and patriotism. This was in part due to the local history of invasions, instability, and uncertainty that happens in Thailand. The people of Thailand simply wanted some stability and to affirm their allegiance to the government that had brought them peace. When Stephen asked later why they still have the Buddhas after meeting with them for a couple weeks, they respond that they do not worship them or perform the rituals to gain merit, but simply keep them to show his solidarity with his country. Another senior elder also points out the idea of Christian liberty and states it as simply that. What should Stephen do? And I think that there are two ideas, or what do you guys think that the issues are in this case study?
Like whether or not having all those things on the wall is like idolatry.
Yeah. So I think there's like the idea of the idol of having the Buddha and the idol of having having nationalism. And then what are your thoughts on like the girls in the swimsuits that they have on the wall?
That was kind of concerning.
A little bit.
I have no idea what that represents in the culture, but like that just seems very wrong, especially for a church leader to have.
Mm-hmm.
He's supposed to be above reproach and be fleeing those sort of things.
I don't really know what it means either, and I didn't really want to look it up, to be honest.
I'm guessing that the issue there is the same as it would be in just about any culture in the world. Yeah, it doesn't tell us specifically what kind of bathing suits, but I think if you read between the lines, you get the idea what the purpose of the picture is, right? Fellas? Yeah. So, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
You mentioned, okay, would it be a stretch to call that a form of idolatry? Or would you categorize the inclusion of those pictures of girls in bathing suits in another way?
I don't think. Oh.
Go ahead.
I don't think it'd be a stretch to call it idolatry. Can't remember the reference. There's a verse that talks about. Actually, I think it's in Colossians. Look at that talks about covetousness, which is idolatry. So I think that could very well be included as another idol on the wall.
I mean, kind of same thing with like idolatry is more of a heart attitude. And so if you're valuing this thing above God, so it could be like both sins, then it's idolatry and also other stuff too.
think I found the verse. Let's see. Yeah, so 3 verse 5, just the last part. Paul tells us to put to death the members of the earthly body, and he says greed, which amounts to idolatry. So greed of any sort, I think, would be included in that, whether that is money or for pleasure or. Yeah.
I just asked a question. It's yours. Floor is yours.
Then, what do you think that the main options that they have here are?
So the main reason that they give for keeping them would be to show solidarity, loyalty, patriotism, and all that. Is there any other way they could show that without having those? Like, I don't know if you researched it or not.
Not that I know of.
Mm-hmm.
That's like the way that they have it. It's that's the way that they have it in every like Thailand home. Or I think he said almost every.
Yeah, you had 2 sources there. One was from a Thai newspaper, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Is that the one that mentioned that?
No, that mentioned something else.
Okay.
Do you think there's one for them that have they have like 3 or 4 categories of what they have on the wall? Like all of those are wrong, or do you think he could do like keep some and not in violation?
I kind of think that all of them are wrong. According to this source that I have, it was Bangkok Post. It says that the real religion in Thailand is not Buddhism, but it is nationalism. And this is all a quote, but there is no genuine faith in Buddha in Thailand, as the temple is corrupt and has eroded their faith. They say that they are racist nationalists, to be exact, since our Thainess is based on the myth of the pure Thai race. So I read that and I was like, whoa, because in my mind it sounds very similar to pre-World War II Germany, kind of like talking about the perfect Thai race.
I read that and I wondered, is the author of the article, is he accepting that personally, or is he being a little bit satirical or sarcastic in using that of the people? The people suppose that they're a pure race. I couldn't exactly understand.
I wasn't entirely sure either. I think maybe because of like the language barrier and all that, maybe.
Yeah.
Not entirely.
Okay.
To be honest. But it did talk earlier about boat people and how they showed up to Thailand as immigrants and they were like floating in the water, asking, save us, save us. And they said, no, someone else could save you. So that's what the article was mainly about. And it was addressing the controversy behind that. And then it followed it up with this quote. So.
Interesting.
So I do think in that aspect, then that would show that all of the things on the wall are kind of in a form of idolatry. I would think saying that nationalism is what they're worshiping and not actually Buddhism.
It is interesting, not only in Thailand, but in a lot of other countries, to note the significance of what people put on their walls. A lot of times in our culture, I like a pretty picture. I like, we put things on our wall because we like the decor. But in a lot of countries, walls become an habitation of spiritually or morally important things for people. It's true in Argentina, I'm sure, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes in our houses and cultures, we put like a cross or something on the wall, or like a biblical reference.
Mm-hmm. Or, God forbid, a picture of Jesus. I grew up, we had a picture of Jesus in our house. Somebody's rendition, somebody's painting of what Jesus may have looked like. I mean, the artist did a good job, but there's a lot of controversy even about that, That become a good luck charm, with people.
Yeah, in Argentina is common. You have the cross, but with Christ still on it, or pictures of the saints. Even like the rosarios, they hang them on the walls as well. And we had a lady from church, which was born, raised Catholic, was saved around probably her mid-30s. And eventually she threw all of that out because she didn't feel it was right to have that. So it's something that some Christians just have to do. And like her family was like, why are you throwing them away? Like they didn't understand because they weren't like saved. So I think in this instance, it might be something that they just have to get rid of.
You're saying that the Catholic pictures on the walls, that's a form of idolatry, kind of?
Kind of. At least it represents what they believe.
Yeah.
So like it depends how Catholic the person is. Some people actually like pray in front of it or like stuff. Some people just have it. So for this lady in particular, it was. I'm not saying that every time it is.
And a lot of Catholics pray to the saints, believing that the saints have more clout with Mary and or Jesus, and so they can pray on behalf of them. So it definitely is something of spiritual significance to them. Anybody here have a little Buddha or another little, maybe you've been to a country where these are idols, but you buy one in a souvenir shop and you got it sitting on a shelf somewhere? I better go back to my office and double check what I've got sitting on my shelves. I inherited some things from the guy that was before me. Nobody has those. You have them?
Yeah, there was a Korean international student who stayed with us, and I was like good friends with him when I was like 10 or something, and he gave me like little tiny minifigure kind of things. I'm not entirely sure what they were, but I think they might have been idols. They were kind of shaped like that.
Let's just suppose for a second you knew it was. Let's say that somebody gave you a little tiny statue of Buddha, big belly and all that, And you say, oh, that's cute. And this will, this will be a reminder of my trip to wherever, and you stick it on your shelf. Okay. Is that equivalent to what's happening here? Why not?
It's not like in a prominent place where everyone can see it displayed proudly, and it's like it's just you're not worshiping it and has no religious significance to you, kind of.
Okay.
What it represents is a little bit different because when you look at it, it represents like a time you had going somewhere and you can think back on it rather than thinking about the actual Buddha or thinking about the actual idol.
Okay.
I think it also depends, like, if someone gave it to you or if you bought it. Like, if you're gonna go and get a souvenir to remember your trip, you could get something else, like a little flag or whatever of the country you were in, or some other. A lot of people get like pins and stuff. You don't really need to get the idol. Just like that. But if someone gives it to you, it's a little more complicated then.
Okay. So what's a word that we could use that would describe in just one word the difference between the significance of putting this little object on a shelf somewhere and where it's placed in a Thai home?
Prominence?
Well, yeah, but I mean, even, okay, he could even put it in a prominent place. People walk in the door and they say, oh, that's really cute. Where'd you get that? Oh, I was, So I'm not thinking so much even about the place where it's located, but there's something else that makes the difference.
Culture.
Yeah, you're getting there. Yeah, I'm looking for something even a little more specific.
Connotations.
Okay, yes, really close. There's the
Honor.
yeah. Huh? Meaning. Okay. Have you ever heard of guilt by association? Yeah, and culture is part of that. And you said what?
Yeah, connotations.
Yeah, and all those are good words. I'm thinking of the word association. When somebody walks in your house and sees that little thing on a shelf, to what do they associate that? Probably a tourist experience you had. You walk into the house of John, or not John, he's the missionary, the guy who lives there. Seum, thank you. And they see that the association is immediately different, right? Connotation, culture, all that. Yeah, I mean, it represents, it signifies, there are a lot of words you can use, something completely different than what it does in your home. Okay? Just let me interject one thing. I may have shared this before. I was teaching a night class in Brazil once, and I had this back in the transparency days. We didn't have PowerPoints back then. And I had a transparency of, it was a picture of Jesus' ascension. And it didn't look Catholic. I was careful not to choose one that had that Catholic look to it. But I had a guy sitting right in the front row, a guy in his 50s. He said, Pastor, he said, I've got a problem with that. He says, the Bible forbids us from using any kind of images or anything that's created in the likeness of God. How would you respond if you were in my position there? Because it was an image. It was an image of God, Jesus, ascending into heaven. He says, the Bible clearly prohibits creating images.
Doesn't the Bible prohibit the creation of images of other things as well?
Above,
Other images, like of other things? Doesn't it prohibit that too? In the same sort of way?
for example,
I don't remember the reference.
okay. I'm thinking specifically of the reference of not using any image that is in the likeness of God. Exodus 20. 10 Commandments. How should I respond to this guy? Because I had to. We've got 15 students there, and they're all waiting for an answer.
You gotta explain why you added it up.
Okay. What would you say, though? If you...
I wasn't yes.
Nice try. I'm just kidding. What would you suggest I say?
Well, I mean, I don't really know why you put it up. Like, you could
Well, I was
like,
teaching-
I do it to worship. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not worshiping it.
It was an Acts, I think it was doing an Acts module, actually, and we were in Acts 1 about the ascension. So I had the verse down there and the picture of Jesus ascending in the background.
So what I was thinking of was in Exodus 20, you shall not make for yourself a carved image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above or is on the earth beneath or in the waters below.
Okay, gotcha. How do you understand that? Because, man, you got a picture of a waterfall in your house.
Sense, it's like you can't make a picture of anything.
Yeah, exactly. So what do you do with that?
I'm guessing for the purpose of worship.
Okay, yeah, the finality of it is what this is all about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Think about it. The Jewish people at that time were, became very much a nomadic people for a while. They probably weren't hanging things in their tent walls, and but yeah. I mean, that's the only way that you can reasonably interpret that passage, right? He's talking about the end game, which is to create an object of worship or an image of worship of some sort. So what do I tell the guy in the classroom then, Val?
Explain, I guess, like, okay, this passage is talking more about what you are worshiping. And in this case, I'm not worshiping it. I'm using it as an illustration.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of feel like this is a situation where, like, it's like if it's offending him,
Mhm.
it's not worth having
Mhm.
a picture either.
Right. So what did I do? From that time forward, I eliminated that image. Even though I think everybody in that classroom pretty much understood, this is not a question of idolatry. This is an illustration to remind them of Jesus' ascension. But because of that, the ease with which pictures are used for that purpose, I decided to eliminate it. Yep. Yeah.
One at a time.
Get that out.
I guess another question I might bring up in all this, especially with the pictures of, was it the emperor or
Yeah,
the
it's the
royal family,
royal family.
the military? So, what would you think about the verse that talks about honor the emperor when it comes to those photos? Are those photos a way in which, in that culture, the people just are honoring the emperor, which is a biblical thing to do, to respect the authorities over you? Because I guess in conflating that one with idolatry of nationalism, I think you have to be a little bit careful that we don't go overboard and just say, well, you can't do any of these things that might actually be legitimately honoring the rulers God has put in place. That makes sense. I'm dealing with one of those side issues.
Let's make sure we understand what's on the wall. So there's the wall. Okay, so what's on the wall? Go ahead and state it again.
Pictures of his family. There's pictures of the royal family, and then there's military officers, and then there's like a poster saying, like a recruitment poster
mhm.
to the military.
Mhm.
And then there's the girls in the bathing suits, and then at the end it's the Buddha.
That's quite a combination. And see, this is where you really have to understand the culture. Why that particular combination of things on the wall together? Are they, in the minds of the Thai people, are they all on the same level? Not physically, but I mean in their significance. In other words, are the girls in the bathing suits as much of an idol to them in their minds as the Buddha? Is the Buddha, the same level of deity as the government, the royal family, or whatever? My guess is that in their minds, no. They're putting all those things up. I mean, most people who are involved in idolatry do not even consider, different levels or significance of the gods. They just, for a lot of them, the more stuff you put up, the more secure you are. I'm going to be safe. Let's add a picture of the royal family. I put a picture of my family because they have ancestors, right? And if you believe in ancestor worship, which many Thais do, then putting a picture of your family on the wall is pleasing to the ancestors, and it probably will, buy you some points with your ancestors. See, so there's a lot going on in the cultural background of this scenario. A lot of things dancing around in their minds, which means it's not something that you can just explain in one simple statement and be done with it. This guy's got his work cut out for him when it comes to, dealing with each one of these. I have no idea why the girls in the bathing suits. That may just be, I mean, Thailand is one of the highest. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead and finish my statement. You know where I'm going with that.
For the highest.
One of those
The child.
Well, okay, yeah, okay. Yeah. I was going to say it's one of the most popular tourist stops in the world. If you go on a website and type in the most popular tourist places in the world, yeah, you're going another direction with that. Thailand's right up there near the top. It is extremely popular tourist place. most likely that picture came out of something related to tourism to draw people to come and see their beautiful girls. You know? And because it's, it's very, very much, I mean, you drive down the base, your average Thai street, you're probably going to see all kinds of pictures like that. In Brazil, I'm just telling you, when I went down the streets in Brazil, I had to exercise use of tunnel vision more often than I wanted to, just because it seemed like everywhere you looked there was. And so they have become so used to seeing that kinds of things that having pictures of girls in bathing suits on the wall, even to a new Christian, might seem harmless until they come to understand more deeply what's going on. I mean, we had to make some regulations for the girls in our youth group in Brazil because at that time the dress standards in public were very skimpy. And so we said, okay, it gets really almost humorous sometimes. We said, okay, gals, you no skirts, because you couldn't go out and buy a skirt, with enough cotton in it to fill the top of an aspirin bottle. And so we said, okay, no skirts. So what do? They bought these super tight slacks that actually showed more of the form of the body than the skirts themselves did, if you know what I'm saying. So we're sitting there thinking, good grief, what are we going to do? We can't win this. And so we said, okay, they got to be loose fitting. And so then the girls said, and they may do this in Argentina too, we don't want to be senoras. Yeah, if they're wearing looser dresses, that's what the older ladies wear. And they said, we're young people. We don't want to be old ladies. So now what do? We don't want them to dress like old ladies, okay? But at the same time, is there a middle ground somewhere? My wife, we have one daughter. And my wife actually ended up finding a seamstress and showing pictures of what she wanted made and had things made for our daughter that we thought would be appropriate and still make her look like a young person. I mean, it was hard. I'm just saying that when it comes to things like pictures of people in bathing suits, depending on where you're from, what culture you're from, what culture you're going to, your impression of that can be very different from somebody that lives there. And that doesn't make it right or wrong. I'm just saying it's the issue of conditioning is very much a part of this in the minds of the people who live there. It's not easy. Yeah.
Like in this situation, or like in this culture, the missionary should not have pictures on his own wall to just be above reproach because of what the nationals associate their pictures with.
What do you guys think?
Or like even pictures on your.
What does John put on his walls? Yeah. I can't remember. John's visiting here, right? He doesn't live here. He's visiting to do some training, right? I don't remember if he. Anyway, what should John tell the believers? Yeah, is it better for them?
Stephen?
I'm like, I don't remember, John.
Okay. Just for what it's worth, I don't get names very well. Okay. Yeah. I'm just not good at it. All right. Stephen, what should you tell them? That's a very good question. What do you guys think?
Honestly, if he's telling him to take down pictures of his family because it's idols, I feel like he should too, just because it might be reciprocated that way.
But is he telling them that? Because it doesn't really say here. It presents the issues and then says ... We gotta finish this. You're right. If he tells them you need to take him down, obviously, okay. Would it be legitimate? Can you imagine a situation where it would be legitimate, best for him not to have anything on his wall, but understand the legitimacy of them having certain things on their walls?
Like allowing them to have.
Like a what?
Like still allowing them to put stuff in. I don't understand the question.
Yeah. In other words, would it be okay to some extent to say you guys can keep certain things on the wall, but I'm not going to as a missionary? Or is that inconsistent? Does it need to be the same for the foreigner and the national? That's the question I'm really asking. Is the same standard need to apply for the foreigner and the national in this situation?
Well, if it's sin, then yes.
Okay.
If it's culture, then no.
Okay.
And I would argue, I think based on what we've seen, even though culture is different, what's going on is still sin, or at least pushing sin forward.
Mhm.
So I would argue that they do need to have the same standards.
Mhm.
I don't think it's wrong for the missionary to have certain things on the wall, like the missionary even has like the Thai royal family, and that's not like a nationalism, like worshiping the leader, but just a respect to that. I think that would go a long way in saying you can honor your leaders, but there are some things that are sin according to the Bible, and those do need to go. So what is sin? What's culture?
Okay, so would you feel comfortable making a distinction between the picture of the royal family and the Buddha, for example? Get rid of the Buddha, but if you want to leave the royal family, that's okay.
I think so. I'd like to talk with them a bit more about what the royal family is. If they are considering that almost as deity, then that would probably have to go.
Okay.
But if it's just to honor the royal family because they love their leader or whatever, it's not a terrible thing.
Okay, the little comment that he inserted is, I would need to talk to them. That is very, very important. Here's a guy that's recognized as a teacher, okay? He will not be able to answer this question legitimately without digging in to the nuances of the cultures. I agree with you that the Buddha is going to have to go because it is recognized as a god. Even if people don't use them as gods in their homes, typically, it is still a national deity. Whether the temples are corrupt or not, or the priests are corrupt, it is still recognized as a national deity. Not even, it's an international deity. I don't see how you can get around getting rid of the Buddha. The royal family thing, your advice is good. Sit down and talk to people and say, tell me, what is this communicating? Ask questions, right? When people look at these, do they do this for good luck? Do they do it just so people think they're good nationalists? Look, how many American homes do you go into that has a picture of the President of the United States on it? Or you walk into Christian businesses and they have a picture of the president or the vice president on the wall or something. Okay, don't we do that here? But the question, yes, sometimes depends on who's in office, right? But we do it. You can walk into places and see the picture of the president, vice president. Why are we okay with that? Or maybe you're not. I mean, do we view it as idolatry when you see a picture of the president, vice president? No. If that day ever comes, woe to us. No, we view it as a way of expressing patriotism. What about, okay, now here's a good one for you. Do any of you attend churches here that have the American flag in the church or the Canadian flag? Do you know there are people, I know Christians, people in our circles that absolutely hate that. They say, why in the world are we putting the American flag in the church? You got American flag over here and you got the Christian flag over here. Now, we have an American flag here. We're a college. We're an educational institution. There may be room for difference there. I personally see a difference, okay? Although we're about as close to a church as you can get without being a church, if you know what I'm saying. Yes. In other words, if we have it in our chapel here, then are we communicating to the students, okay, you go into your church somewhere and you put them in your church as well? Even though we're not a church, what are we teaching our students? I'm not saying I'm against it. I'm just posing the question. But I have a son who says, why in the world? Well, we had a student here from Scotland several years ago. He said, he told me, he said, I couldn't believe it. I walk in and see, why do all these churches have American flags in them? He just couldn't figure that out. Our patriotism, when I was in high school, I was saved in a church in Ohio, and every summer we had a July 4th I Love America Sunday. It was a whole Sunday devoted to I Love America. And we had an I Love America cantata every year, and we're marching in with flags, and we're quoting Ben Franklin, a womanizer, okay? And, we're quoting, you're Canadian, so you can go ahead and jump on board and, bash these guys. I'm not trying to bash them, but I mean, Thomas Jefferson, who, cut out parts of the Bible he thought that were good enough to keep. We're quoting all these guys and we're celebrating this as a church. Is that idolatry? We never thought it was patriotism. We have a word for it that avoids the idea of idolatry. We're just patriots. After all, our country was founded on Christian principles. Therefore, we should exalt. Your generation doesn't do that as much as my generation did. I never even thought about it because I was saved at 14, freshman in high school, and it was in the church, and I never questioned it just because everybody did it. Was it any different than putting the royal family up on the, on the wall? How about in their church? Should they put a picture of the royal family or a flag of Thailand in their church? Look, we have an incredible capacity for inconsistency in our thinking, and we have to ask these questions and be honest with ourselves. Yeah.
So what role would you say, like, as Christians, we're like aliens and foreigners? I don't know what book it is, that like we're just passing through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 1 Peter.
And so like, but we still live in countries. And so like, what is the role, like, is it wrong for a Christian to be patriotic? And like, to what level? Because I feel like that applies to like, I don't know, like it's kind of like all across cultures. Like,
Okay.
obviously it looks different in each culture.
Let me ask you a question then, and this does relate because we're talking about the royal family picture. Let's ask the question: what is patriotism? Because I think that's important in trying to understand this. How do you define patriotism?
Love for one's country.
A love for one's country? Would you stop there?
I would kind of say love and loyalty to one's country.
Okay, yeah, I think that when we use the word patriotism, it does involve a love, but I think there's a step up to loyalty. In fact, we pledge our lives, our fortune, our sacred honor, right? In other words, people are willing to give their lives. We what's that? Oh, I heard somebody out there. Patriotism in our country has really, for the past couple hundred years, been more than just I love my country, although that is definitely true. But it is, listen to those words again. We pledge our lives, our fortune, our sacred honor. Sacred honor. You guys are Canadian, so were you born in Canada? You're born. No. What does that mean? Our sacred honor. That's. And then we put the flags in the church, right along with the Christian flag, the other side of the platform.
And say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yes. And do some of you work in children's clubs here where you say the pledge of allegiance to the American flag, and then they pledge allegiance to the Christian flag, and the pledge allegiance to the Awana flag?
Yeah.
I'm just asking questions.
That was actually a controversy at my church like 5-6 years ago about doing the flags, because now we don't have them. I think it's more because of just time and during the club. But
at least that was a good excuse.
That was a good excuse for taking it out. But I always go back to that. I was always confused why there was such a big issue, such a big controversy with it.
Do your churches put Canadian flag at all in their churches ever? In your church?
I don't think so, no.
Yeah.
No, Canadians aren't very patriotic. I'm just saying.
Argentines are, but we keep it out of the church.
We take the American flag out when Democrats are elected. We put it back in when the Republicans are elected. But this all goes back to the point that you made. We need to go to do some digging and find out why. Why is that picture of the royal family there? What are the roots of that? And if you try to make a general statement without going a little deeper, you may end up creating more trouble for yourself than good. Yeah, very important. So what did Paul mean when he said, honor the king?
I guess whenever I've read that passage, it's always been like used in defense to like submit to authority.
Okay.
And so
Yeah,
as it stands alone.
yeah. The flagship passage on political responsibility is Romans 13. And there it's very clearly the issue of submitting. It's not worshiping, it's not bowing down to any. It's the issue of submission. And why? On the basis of what truth?
The authority is given by God.
Right? That's true of Canadian authority, that's true of American authority, that's true of wherever we are. Yeah. You say, well, we're spending quite a bit of time on the picture. I think for most of us, the Buddha issue is easier. The royal family one is a little more thorny. That's why I've drugged this one out a little bit more. Bathing suit. I don't think we have to spend a lot of time on that. Get those things off the wall. You know, come on, just understand your flesh, guys. Okay, yeah. And then the other one was his family. Yeah, and but see, that also needs some questioning. I mean, we'll have family pictures on our walls, but is that some sort of a good luck charm because of the ancestors, or is that just because I love my family? When visitors come over, we have family pictures on our wall. If you come to our house, we just put new ones up. At Thanksgiving, we had pictures taken. Anybody been seen those? I guess. Yeah, we had canvas ones made. I love them. Their kids and their family. We have 7 grandkids. Well, nothing to do with idolatry. You know, it's just. But it's good to ask that question. Why the family up there? Does that signify? Is that any form of protection? My grandma had a horseshoe hanging over her back door. She came from a Quaker family. We said, you know, and we believe she knew the Lord. Said, well, let's just take that thing down. No, I'd rather you leave it there. Why? Well, I just don't want to mess with it. Yeah, good luck. The horseshoe, yeah, you're familiar with that? The horseshoe idea hanging over is a good luck charm in many homes. And if we open an umbrella in her house, she went, she was. I do think she became a Christian, but just was never really strongly, grounded. All right, and Riley, anything else? We've been around all the way around the Mulberry Bush. Is there anything you want to say in conclusion? Give us your take on it.
I kind of thought that the only thing that was fine up there was the pictures of family, because he said that it was like his sons and his daughters,
okay,
and like his wife and stuff. So I don't know. It's not ancestors.
Okay.
They're not like dead yet, but
Once they're dead,
Magic marker. But the others you would say, Dev?
yeah, I think that you should probably hear the other ones.
Okay, yeah. So you kind of get the idea here that these case studies are intended to be difficult. You know, they're intended to provoke a lot of thinking. But do your cultural homework, understand politics and its relation to the people, the influence, and all that, because it is really important. You did a good job bringing up the key things here. And Stephen, if Stephen has done that work, then he's qualified to make a call on this. Otherwise, leave the 3 dots there until you do some homework, then come back and finish the sentence.
What do you all think, though? Would you guys take down the political leaders and stuff? Or would you leave them up?
I would ask him what he thinks of them first,
Yeah,
and then if what he thinks about them is considered idolatry.
I'd ask around inside and outside of the church as well.
Right. It's like, what do other people see this as too? Because what are they going to think walking into this pastor's home then?
Mm-hmm.
But it all depends.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And the fact that you're willing to take time to ask questions is also really, really good for discipleship, because it's teaching him that you're not coming in there as the know-it-all that says this you can do. You know, it shows humility on your part. It shows that you're really interested in understanding what these things mean and how they affect your life. That's really good. Nothing wrong with saying, that's not sure about this. Let's talk. That's a good teaching tool. It really is. Satisfied? Right. So take everything down, put the family picture, maybe the royal literature, and do some talking. So who's next? Tuesday is Tuesday's assessment day.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, all right. Here on Thursday?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Everybody do the reading? Is that what your name is on here? Okay. Yeah, okay, so she's on
Number
Thursday.
60.
Trisha's at number 60 on Thursday next week. Nice to have you in class.
Thank you for having
How
me.
long are you here?
No.
Cool.
Okay.
What's the title?
Well, see if you can straighten them out between now and Saturday, all right?
Might need longer than that.
Enjoy your time. We'll get together next week.
Right now.
All right.
What?
Music and worship.
What, you got music and worship? Is that with Dr.
Ellis.
Good.
Yep.
You go today?
What?
You go today?
Thank you, Riley. Good job.
I hope not. He will hold us down.